This section focused on women, gender, and incarnation, and it explained how women's experiences in prison are shaped a lot by gender expectations. One of the key figures mentioned was Elizabeth Fry, who played a major role in improving conditions for incarcerated women in the United Kingdom. At the time when prisons were extremely harsh, Fry believed women deserved more humane treatment. She pushed for better living conditions, education, and opportunities for women to improve themselves. Her work became the foundation for later prison reform efforts and even inspired women's prisons reform movements in other countries, including parts of Africa. Despite early reform efforts, the section explains that many women are still held in custodial institutions. These institutions are similar to men's prisons and mainly focus on confinement rather than rehabilitation. Women in these facilities are often just warehouse, meaning they are kept locked up with very little access to programming, treatment, or support services. This is especially concerning because many incarcerated women have experienced trauma, abuse, addiction, or mental health struggles before entering prison. Instead of helping women work through these issues, custodial institutions often ignore them, which makes it harder for women to successfully re-enter society after release. The idea of reformatory was also discussed in this section. Reformatories were created with the belief that incarceration should rehabilitate women from what society viewed as immoral behavior. This shows how women's incarceration has often been tied to moral judgment rather than just criminal behavior. Women weren't just punished for breaking the law, they were punished for failing to meet social expectations about how women should behave. Reformatories focused on controlling women's behavior and punishing them towards traditional gender roles, like being obedient, modest, and domestic. This highlights how gender influences the way punishment is structured in the criminal justice system. Another important topic was pseudo-families, which are relationships formed between people who are not biologically related. These relationships are very common in women's prisons and often develop as a way to cope with the emotional stress of incarceration. Because women are often separated from their real families, they create support systems with other inmates to provide emotional care, protection, and a sense of belonging. These pseudo-families can help women survive prison emotionally, but they can also show how isolating incarceration can be. This section also focused on incarcerated mothers and the impact imprisonment has on their children. When women are incarcerated, it often deeply affects their families. Whether mothers are able to maintain relationships with their children depends on things like the distance of the prison from home and the length of their sentence. In many cases, children are cared for by relatives, but some end up in the foster care. The separation can be traumatic for both the mother and the child and can give long-term emotional and developmental effects. Overall, this section shows that women's incarceration is not just about crime and punishment. It's heavily influenced by gender, moral expectations, and social rules. The system often fails to address women's needs, especially when it comes to rehabilitation, family connections, and emotional support.